Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to the channel, and welcome to another Inspired By video. In this series of videos, I like to take an original piece of music, either inspired by an artist or a genre of music, and then I break down all the guitar parts for you in hopes that you can learn some of the techniques that make up that style and incorporate it in your own playing. In this video, we're going to take on hair metal. Let's jump into the track, and I'll break it all down for you. I really had a lot of fun putting this track together and reminiscing on all the music that I grew up with in the 80s. You'll notice that I borrowed kind of key concepts from the certain production and arranging techniques. One of the arranging techniques that I borrowed was, in the beginning lots of times they would have a guitar playing the chords that would basically turn into the verse, but arpeggiated and at a lower volume, just to add a little bit of contrast before they moved into the higher energy section of the verse. And then you'll notice that they also had more pedal notes inside of their music. What I mean by that is, and I'll show you this more in the second section of the guitar thing, is that they'll use an open string on their guitar and move the chords around underneath it. But they would keep the bass line the same. So that A is still pedaling there. And I also do the same thing when we get it into maybe the third section of the song where we're playing off of the E chord. So that's an interesting concept. And also you'll notice the guitar sounds. I'm using basically a plexi sound with my Line 6 HX STOMP here. And what's interesting is a thing that they would do is to beef up the guitar sounds is they would put a delay on it. And basically like an eighth delay with a little tail. There's like 1 or 2, maybe 3 repeats, depending how hard I hit. But listen to the difference. If I take that delay off, the guitar is very dry, and it's not as beefy sounding. Now if I put that delay on, it's almost acts as if there's a double guitar part playing the same thing. So that was an interesting production technique that would often happen here. And again, lots of times as far as the arranging goes, soft quiet part in the beginning, a lot of high energy going into the verse and the chorus, and then they would end the song kind of the same way that they came in, with a more of a softer part. So let's go ahead and jump into guitar part 1. So for guitar part 1, we're going to use something that is an effect on everyone's guitar that they hardly use, and that's the volume knob. Lots of times, and I'm guilty of this too, I would just crank my volume up to 10 and go to town. But in this case here, we're going to play the chords of this progression a little bit quieter, even though we have a very high gain setting. It still cleans up nice. And the chords that we're playing basically are out of this A chord. Here, we're going to just play the middle string, so the middle triad. A, C sharp, and E. And we're going to keep that low A open, the open string. a little bit of an interesting chord here. I kind of view this as an A7 with a sus4. So I'm going to play it up here, and I'm basically going to have the G note here, still the open A, G, and then I'm playing a D on the 7th fret of the G string, and I'm playing the E on the 5th fret of the B string. And again though, we're kind of keeping this pedal note happening. And then we're going to go down to a D chord. It would look like this if you're used to the cage system. This would be your C shape, but playing the D this way. But we're not going to play the D on the bottom. We're going to play the open A again. So this would be like a second inversion of this D chord, because I'm having the 5th, A in the bass, the F sharp, A, and the D up here. And then we come back down to our normal A chord. So like this. Oh, no, not like this. Like this. And the arpeggiated line is basically going up and down the chords in the notes that kind of fall underneath your fingers. Now those same chords are used in Guitar Part 2, but this is where we're going to crank up the volume and have that high gain sound happening. And now we're going to introduce that pedal note that I talked about in the beginning here, of basically having this A kind of chunking along here on 8th notes. So this will take a little bit getting used to, just kind of going along, chunking along there. And you'll notice these kind of hits happen. They're almost on the upbeat. The first one's downbeat. And I introduced this chord here in this part, which is basically the E chord, but without the top half without the E in the root, but we're playing the A. So it's the same shape that you're familiar with from the D chord here, just slid up. And that repeats until we go into the next section of the song. The next section of the song basically is playing an A chord, a G, and then a D over F sharp, and an A. And this was very common. As you can see, chord inversions were pretty common in this style of music. We have them here playing with the D chord. We have them here again in this section with the F sharp and the bass. So that's something to explore if you're not used to that. And all a chord inversion is basically is playing the same notes of the chord that you're used to. Like if you're playing a D chord, let's say you have D, F sharp, and A, but you have a different note instead of the root in the bass. So I can put an F sharp in the bass, and that's considered the first inversion. And if I put the A in the bass, that's considered the second inversion, because I'm taking the 5th of that chord and I'm making it the root note. So this part basically is... And that was another common move that would happen. It would be a walk up from one chord to the other with kind of low bass notes. And all I'm doing there is picking up the low E, F sharp to the G, and then I'm doing kind of a quick brush up of the top half of the chord. So on those chords, basically, we're just holding out the A, walking up to the G, brush up, hit the bass note, the F sharp bass, brush up again, and then 2 chunks of the A to get to the A chord. So let me play that section coming from the first section. comes the third section of the song. Top, we're using a very similar, very familiar shape for this style of music, where you just basically would use 2 notes, again, of this E chord here. I'm just gonna use these 2 notes though, and I'm gonna switch my fingers around. So I have the E, and I have a G sharp here, which make the E chord. And then I'm gonna dance this shape up a whole step for the first note. So I'm kind of using the chords, but I'm using that the pedal note of the E. Just to kind of pedal off of the E and move the chords underneath it. Just the same kind of concept that we used for the verse idea. But now we're just playing off of the E chord. So up top, I'm basically playing a little bit of this melody line out of these chords. And I'm sliding down from this chord to add a little more character. So in between that melody line, I'm adding the low E as the pedal note. And then I'm going to go right back into the verse. That's not the chord it ends on. And then we'll end on an A chord again, and as that part fades out, time to duck down the volume again and go right back into the intro. To end the song. And that's the entire song. So I encourage you just to kind of explore with this style of music and have a lot of fun. And make sure again you put a nice little high gain sound on and kind of put a little bit of an 1/8 note delay to really beefing up your guitar sounds. That's another Inspired By video down. Hope that you found some value in it. And if you did, would you do me a favor? I'm really trying to grow the channel. Would you help me out by subscribing down below, hitting the like button and knocking on the bell? Again, these things help me out and I'm so grateful for your support. As always, I wish you a great day.